up everyone, TrueBlue here, and today I'm turning the cast of Yokai Watch into Pokemon. They're obviously very similar franchises in the sense of the whole monster collecting genre, but gameplay-wise, story-wise, everything, they're very different. I love Yokai Watch, I've talked about it before on the channel, and I've also talked about the, I guess, sequel series Level 5 is working on, Holy War Mansion, you can check that out, but I took 5 yokai, very famous ones, of course, and just turned them into Pokemon, same way I did with Kamen Rider a few weeks back. If you want to see me do more of this sort of stuff, let me know in the comments what franchise to cover, like the video, so I know this guys what you want to see. With that being said, I'm just going to hop right into it. For one, let's start with the mascot, Jibanyan of the Charming Tribe. So Jibanyan is one of the many yokai based off of a real actual legend, this being the Nekomata. The Nekomata is just like this cat spirit that like eats people. It's kind of a jerk. Jibanyan doesn't necessarily fit that entirely. He just kind of fights trucks, which kind of based, but I respect it. Now, originally, I was gonna use Meowth as the basis. Meowth is like the cat Pokemon. It is one of the most popular ones, of course. But I think just because the anime and Meowth having such a strong character, it didn't fit putting Jibanyan. So I instead opted for a different cat, so I looked through all the cats, and then I stumbled upon Floragato, Sprigatito's Evo, and for some reason, that one just felt fun. So Floragato's my base, so Jibanyan is a bit bigger now, of course. But I'll leave all of the, the basis stuff on the left, and here is Florinion. This is a very interesting one, to say the least. It's very much, you can see all the Jibanyan parts, you can see the tail with the flames. All of Floragato has basically been just, like, stripped away. All the extra plant detailing, all of that, kind of just gone. And we have this cat. So, he is just a little guy. I really like Florinion, how it ended up turning out. I do like how you can still see kind of what makes Pokemon and Yokai Watch with the designs, because, like, for one, the eyes of Yokai are so much simpler than Pokemon's, which I, like, didn't realize till I started working on this. On top of that, I feel like the designs, especially in later entries of Pokemon, have so much more detailing compared to what Yokai Watch usually has, as a lot of their more popular ones, of course, are the simple designs, but even their complex designs are more just a lot of colors and less of a lot of like intricate detailing, which Pokemon has been doing more of. So it really creates this nice contrast. So applying Jibanyan, a very simple design, to Floragato, especially whose artwork has so much like shading and detailing, it was definitely interesting. But I think it came out really nice. All the shading ended up looking like a fur texture to me. I don't know if maybe it's just I'm crazy, but it kind of looked like that. And he still feels like a cat, still feels like a little guy, but at the same time, there's a bit of sass. And Jibanyan's a very sassy yokai, so it works. Now, in the actual Pokemon world, Floridion is a pure normal type. This cat is a rather smug little thing. Hates any moving vehicles. This cat only wants ride Pokemon to be a thing. Any form of vehicle or like transportation, not happening. Not a fan. Florian is very popular and has many different forms and likes trying on new things all the time. So there's a lot of variety in the Florian you'll find throughout all the different regions. Now, for the base Florian that I have designed here, moves, I gave Fury Swipes, references Positive Fury. Ember, because in the games, that is Jibanyan's element, if you will. Charm, of course, Charming Tribe. And Metronome, to reference the fact that Jibanyan will just pull out anything and be a new yokai. In Yokai Watch, like, by the end of the run, I want to say at least 10% of yokai are based off of Jibanyan. And there's a lot of yokai, so that's kind of crazy. And to go back to Positive Fury and Fury Swipes, I gave Jibanyan, or Florian, Skill Link, which maximized the number of times multi-streak moves hit, so For those who don't understand that, that just means if your move attacks more than once, it'll always hit the maximum number of times possible. So Fury Swipes, I believe, is like 2 to 5 times you might end up hitting the opponent. This guarantees that it'll always hit 5 times. Now for the bestest boy, my favorite yokai, Komasan. Komasan's just a guy. What more is there to say? He is just a guy. I mean, like, seriously. Look at him. Look at him. What can be said? What can't be said? Komasan is based off the Komainu. They're real-life guard statues in front of temples in Japan, or shrines in Japan. And Komasan is kind of, if that came to life, and from the country. Unless you get to Shadow Side, we don't talk about that. So because of that, I decided to take the Pokemon who, I don't know if he's originally based off of it, but the Hisuian is very much based off of it, and that is Growlithe. Hisuian Growlithe is very much, you can see the resemblance between that and the Komainu statues. I think original Growlithe has some semblance as well, which is why the Hisuian looks so much like it, but don't quote me on that. But because of that, Growlithe is my basis for Komasan, and we got Komalith. This is my favorite thing that I have done for this series. He's so cute. He's just Growlithe, but just nothing. There's not a thought behind those eyes. Genuinely, there's nothing. He's just a little guy. I love him. His little bow tie, his little bag. I think he's adorable. But yeah, so as you can tell, Growlithe has just been destroyed. All detailing on Growlithe was replaced with just the white fur. He has his blue little underbelly, flame tail, flame eyebrows, little bag, bow tie, little swirls. He's just so simple. And I love him so much. I love him so much. Komasan is such a phenomenal yokai, such a phenomenal design. Growlithe is also adorable. You combine the two, you just get this. And I usually don't do this. But because Komasan has a brother named Komajiro, who is just a recolor. Just a recolor of Komasan. And I know later entries in Yokai Watch gave Komasan a pouch to differentiate them. I didn't really think having some artificial way to differentiate between these two Pokemon was really necessary. So I just made a shiny Komalith who is colored after Komajiro. And again, very adorable. Colors work great as well. I love how they both turned out, and I'm very happy with Komalith. Now, in the Pokemon world, Komalith is a very protective little doggo. Not the most intelligent. His barks seemingly have an accent. We don't know how. We don't know why or how, but he just does. And he also loves ice cream. This Komalith will attack various Vanillites whenever they see them. And in many regions where Komalith is found, Vanillite is kind of an endangered species. So Komasan being completely fire-based, he's just pure fire type. For moves, I gave Pound to represent the standard like punching that Komasan will do in various games. Flame Burst, a strong fire attack similar to that of Komasan's various fire moves throughout the franchise. Rock Tomb, this actually references Shadow Side and the origins behind how Komasan in that world came to be. And then Helping Hand, because if there's one thing Komasan does, it's help. And he has little hands. For abilities, I just decided to give him Blaze. Simple fire type ability, which just powers up fire type moves when HP is low. Nothing too crazy. A lot of these ended up being rather weak Pokemon in comparison to the last batch I made, only because the yokai they're based on are meant to be the weak ones of the set. Now, to round off all of the, I guess, mascots, if you will, we're taking Eusapion. Now, Eusapion, not really on yokai basis, but Eusapion is based off of the story of the rabbit on the moon. And the idea that when you look up to the moon, you can see a rabbit, like, chiseling away. That is a old Japanese, like, folktale. And that is the basis for Eusapion. But Eusapion isn't actually a rabbit. He's an otter that wants to go to space. And when he became a yokai, got bunny-like aspects on a suit. So I decided to base him rather, instead of on a bunny Pokemon, off of an otter as well, and apply the bunny aspect later on. So I stuck with Oshawott because, I mean, the body type fits so perfectly as an otter. So I created this abomination, Oshappion. He's a little guy. There's negative brain cells. He kind of stares into your soul. I don't know if it's just me, because it's on my computer directly, but sometimes at certain angles, I feel like his eyes move a bit, but I might just be going insane. So Oshappion here is just Oshawott down to the silhouette. I gave him a little flame tail, of course, Scorbunny's ears, kind of chopped up to make the bunny ears, and then just the color scheme of Usapion, of course. I tried recreating the helmet a bit over, and then you could see the little blue face, the little mouth. He's got the buttons for going Invader mode and then Emperor mode. All the main details are there. The only thing I didn't end up giving to Oshappion is the gun. Well, so Usapion and his gun is very much like, that's just part of the yokai. It didn't feel like it fit in Pokemon specifically. Well, a lot of Pokemon have weapon-based things, or some of them just have actual weapons. The idea of all Oshappion having just a laser pistol just didn't sit with me, so I did not give him his gun. But just know he can still shoot projectiles. Speaking of, Oshappion, in the Pokemon world, aspires to go to space. His dream, all Oshappion's dream of reaching the moon and colonizing it. They're rather intelligent, regardless of how they look. They're actually very smart and creative Pokemon. Now, because Usapion is a shady yokai, I decided to go for the dark type. On top of that, he's kind of just weird looking, so we're gonna just give him dark type. Now, to reference all of the moon-related things, I gave Moonblast and Moonlight. Moon Rabbit crew, the Moon Rabbit. On top of that, scary face, because, I mean, look at that face I gave him. And then parting shot, because it's a gun attack. For abilities, I gave Analytic. This boosts the Pokemon's power if the Pokemon moves last that turn. I don't know how fast Oshappion would be, but I would assume with that ability kind of slow to take advantage of it. Now, this isn't really one of the mascot yokai, but he's very big in the franchise, and that's Whisper. Whisper is based off of the Will-O-Wisp, a very iconic thing, just in general. And then Shiro Ukari. This thing, I don't know and I don't want to know. I'm just going to put it on screen. There you go. Moving on. So Whisper's a combination of things and is more of just this general guide in the yokai world for your protagonist and kind of just explain stuff to you. So because of that, his design is very simple and there isn't much happening. So I was kind of forced to put Whisper on something and then make it work because there's so little to work with. So I went for a very simple Pokemon, and since he's very much a ghost, I looked for the ghost types. I ended up on Duskull. Duskull kind of has that same shape, the idea of the floaty guy, but the only thing was the skull, of course, so I just kind of removed that, and, we ended up with Whiskull. Whiskull is just Duskull shaved down with a very menacing face. Very menacing. But it's just Whisper. There's only so much I can say on this design that I did because Whisper's so simple, Duskull's so simple. You combine the two that are both simple, you just get a glorified Whisper with weird shit. So I'm just going to move right to the stats because what else is there to say on this design, really? So, while I've been trying to avoid the ghost type for all of these Pokemon because they're yokai, so they're ghosts naturally, Whiskull just is a ghost. It's said that Whiskull years ago used to be part of an army, and after they died were cursed to eternally live as Whiskulls. These menacing creatures, but they tend to be relatively helpful. Being rather knowledgeable, kind of. For moves, I gave Pound, because Whisper does a lot of similar weak punches like Komasan. Shadow Sneak, because just kind of appears in, the anime, just ghost. To reference his Sultimate of his Bad Breath attack, I gave Dragon Breath because it's a strong breath attack, and then Lick because it's a ghost type move and kind of fits with this design. To reference the kind of using the yokai pad, knowing so much about the various yokai in the show, I gave Frisk. This allows a Pokemon to see what held item the opposing Pokemon has. There isn't really an ability to check like moves or types necessarily, and it just felt weird for Whistle to kind of randomly have the information instead of something concrete like that. So I feel like Frisk works because it's a smaller subset of information necessarily. That's Whistle. He's very simple, so I can't really say much on it, but that's Whistle. Lastly, we have QB, based off the Kitsune, a very, like the yokai. I genuinely don't think there's a more popular like myth in the world that is based off of like yokai that is not the Kitsune. So I'm not gonna bother explaining it. But this is QB. OG yokai, OG powerhouse yokai, and I want to say basically every monster catching franchise has had their version of the Kitsune, or like the Nine-Tailed Fox. Speaking of Ninetales, so because again this one had a direct correlation, I wanted to use Ninetales as the basis. But because of QB being more humanoid and all that, it was a little difficult to work with. So rather than kind of taking that design and just stretching it out, I did look to a later entry, that being Shadowside, where QB has this more animalistic, actual Kitsune-like shape. So I did use that, but I did try applying the color scheme of original QB. There's kind of a mix mash of how it ended up looking, but here is Nainubi, very much just Ninetales with QB's colors. I did make the fur pattern around the neck match QB's a bit more, and gave much more prominent eyes. QB's eyes are very much, they sting when you look at them. QB has such a prominent face with the face paint and, again, the eyes. So I really want to capture that, and I feel like you look at this, the eye takes your attention, and I'm very glad at how that came out. Overall, it's just Ninetales with QB's colors, but I do think it actually looks really nice because since they share that basis of the Nine-Tailed Fox, the Kitsune, the designs ended up working really well together, of course. I'm not shocked at all, but very happy with how this turned out. Now, Nainubi, Fire Psychic type. Nainubi is a flirty Pokemon. Nainubi's goal is to just convince all other Pokemon that this is what peak looks like. It is Nainubi. This Pokemon strives on making others fall in love with it, just to never act on it. Basically just the worst version of a flirt possible. For moves, I gave Mystical Fire, because it's a magical fire attack. Shadow Claw, because there's a lot of swiping, and this references Dark QB. Attract, because again, flirty by nature. And Psychic Fangs, because I couldn't really think of a good psychic move that fit with everything I was going for here. And lastly, to go back to the whole being flirty, I gave Cute Charm. This just kind of is like Attract, but happens on contact rather than the move needing to be activated. I did all of the mascots, basically, and QB, because iconic. I'm very happy with how these turned out. I love Yokai Watch. It's my second favorite video game franchise behind Pokemon, to begin with. And the realization of how many Pokemon and Yokai share origins, because a lot of Pokemon, of course, are based off of old Japanese folktales, or have some basis in some culture, and of course Yokai all, for the most part at least, come from origins, those real-life origins as well. So the overlap was very interesting, and there's a ton more. Of course, there's a ton more Yokai I could do. And I very much would like to do that. In the comments, what yokai you'd like me specifically to do. I'll probably get another batch eventually and make it part 2 at some point. But if you want to see me make more things into Pokemon or other franchises, whatever, again, let me know. Subscribe. I got more stuff on the way, but yeah. All that being said, I wish you a lovely day.